Imagine living a life where no one, not their rudeness, not their lies, not even their disrespect, can shake your peace. You walk through the chaos of the world with a calm so deep that people wonder if you know something they don't. You still hear the insults, you still see the drama, but it no longer enters your system. It touches you, but it doesn't move you. Yet, how often have you let one careless comment ruin your whole day? How many nights have you replayed an argument in your head, getting angry all over again, even though the moment has long passed? Most people don't live in peace. They live in reaction. They don't own their emotions. Their emotions own them. One insult, one rejection, one unexpected look, and their entire energy shifts. Not because the world is that powerful, but because they never learned how to take that power back. Here's the truth. You can become emotionally untouchable. Not cold, not numb, but untouchable, like a mountain in a storm. The wind howls, the rain crashes, but the mountain doesn't move. That's the inner strength we're talking about. Once you have it, you'll never be thrown off by what someone says. You'll never feel small because of someone else's mood. You'll never again be angry or bothered by anyone or anything. The real pain isn't in the moment itself. It's in what that moment awakens inside you. Something deeper, something older, something you're not even fully aware is there. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's what happens every time we blame others for how we feel. We hand over the keys to our emotional state and then wonder why we're always being driven into chaos. But the truth is, no one can make you feel anything without your participation. Anger, frustration, resentment, they're not caused by other people. They're caused by your response to them, and that response is shaped by the unresolved parts of you that you've been avoiding for years. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same insult. One brushes it off. The other stews in it for days. The insult didn't change. The difference is what it met inside. We're not reacting to what they said or did. We're reacting to what it touches in us. Old wounds, expectations, unquestioned beliefs. And more often than not, it's not even about the moment. It's about everything that moment reminds us of. When someone ignores you and you feel invisible, that pain isn't born in that second. It's a repetition, a mirror. Maybe it's reflecting all the times you felt overlooked growing up. When someone criticizes you and you explode, that reaction didn't come from the words themselves. It came from a need to protect an identity you've worked hard to maintain. The real battlefield isn't the conversation, the coworker, the partner, or the stranger online. It's what's happening in you. Most people don't realize this. They think their anger is righteous. They think their frustration is justified. But what if the real work isn't about changing the world? It's about changing how you respond to it. What if the key to peace isn't in controlling others, but in mastering yourself? Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But self-knowledge isn't just about knowing your preferences or your goals. It's about understanding the places in you that still hurt, the places that still seek approval, the places that still think peace has to come from being treated a certain way. Here's where the breakthrough begins. You are not your reaction. You are not your anger. You are not your pain. You are the awareness underneath it all. The more you connect to that awareness, the less you need the outside world to behave perfectly for you to feel okay. This doesn't mean you have to tolerate disrespect. It means your peace is no longer dependent on the presence or absence of it. That's a whole different level of freedom. Most people live trapped in their reactions. They hear a tone, see a look, feel an energy shift, and suddenly, they're deep in it, defending themselves, overthinking, matching the other person's mood without even realizing it. But what if you could pull back? What if, in the middle of the moment, you didn't have to be the person experiencing it? What if you could simply watch it, like you're not you? That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. When you detach into observer mode, you step out of the emotional swirl and into clarity. You stop seeing the situation from inside your ego and start seeing it from above, like you're floating above the conversation, witnessing it like a quiet presence. The emotion doesn't disappear, but it doesn't own you anymore. You're no longer the puppet of your nervous system. You're the one holding the strings. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living, but the examined life is where you find your peace." That's where you begin to experience something rare in this world: sovereignty over your inner world. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming conscious. It's about feeling more, not less. It's about feeling deeper because, when you don't rush to react, you finally hear the full message your emotions are trying to send you. You realize that the anger is protecting something vulnerable, that the sadness isn't weakness, it's longing, that the anxiety is pointing to where you still seek control, and you can sit with all of it without judgment. This is emotional sovereignty, the ability to respond from awareness rather than react from conditioning. When you stop reacting from the script, you start writing something new. You stop being the echo of every harsh word you've ever heard. You stop playing out roles written by fear, ego, or childhood defense mechanisms. You start living from choice. People will feel the difference. They'll notice you don't flinch the way you used to, that you're not baited by sarcasm or passive aggression, that you don't need to win every interaction. You'll stop chasing closure from people who can't even give it to themselves. You'll stop needing every misunderstanding to be corrected. Sometimes you'll just let it go, not because you're defeated, but because you've chosen peace over performance. That's emotional authorship. That's power. And here's what's even more beautiful. When you start living this way, your presence becomes medicine for yourself and for others. You give people permission to slow down, to reflect, to drop their guard, because your stillness reminds them that maybe, just maybe, they don't have to keep playing the same roles either. So the next time you feel triggered, remember this: that first surge of emotion, it's not you. It's the script. And you don't have to follow it. You can pause, breathe, reclaim the pen, and write something better. Every time you do, you become less of a puppet and more of a presence, less of a reaction and more of a response. And that, right there, is the path to peace. The world won't go quiet just because you found your peace. People will still cut you off mid-sentence. They'll still talk behind your back, misread your intentions, fail to apologize, choose ego over honesty. Life will still throw things you didn't plan: late nights, early calls, broken trust, sudden losses. The noise won't stop. The chaos won't dissolve. But if you've mastered what we've been building toward, you won't shake. Because the point was never to change the world. The point was to change how you move through it. Most people live in a constant state of emotional turbulence, bouncing between triggers like a pinball. They believe they need the world to be different, kinder, quieter, more predictable, for them to feel okay. So they try to manage everything outside themselves, clinging to people who agree, avoiding situations that might sting, chasing control like it's the only way to stay afloat. But what if you didn't need to control the waves? What if you just learned how to stand still inside them? Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." In this frame, The final one. You become untouchable. Not because nothing touches you, but because it no longer owns you. You don't become the noise. You don't match every mood in the room. You don't swing wildly from high to low based on someone else's words. You stay centered, quiet, inside. That's the power of all the inner work, of watching, detaching, disidentifying. You begin to live not as a reactor, but as a responder. And the difference is everything. Reacting is fast, defensive, emotional. It's driven by fear or pride or unexamined pain. Responding is slow, deliberate, conscious. It comes from presence, not panic. And once you live from response, the world starts to look different. Not because it changed, but because you did. The same insult that used to burn now sounds like static. The same rejection that once collapsed, you now feels like redirection. You lose the urge to prove yourself. You no longer need to win arguments or control outcomes. You don't need the apology to find closure. You don't need everyone to understand. That's emotional freedom. Socrates said, "To find yourself, think for yourself." And to think for yourself, you first have to see yourself, separate from the waves of emotion, the noise of ego, the storms that others live inside. Because when you know who you are, no one else can tell you who you're not. And here's the part no one tells you. When you master this, you still feel. You're not a robot. You're not numb. You still notice the betrayal, the sarcasm, the loss. You still care. But the difference is, you don't react from the wound. You respond from the wisdom that was forged through it. That quiet confidence? It shows up in how you breathe when everyone else is yelling, in how you choose silence over proving your point, in how you walk away, not out of weakness, but because you're no longer trying to convince someone of your worth. Plato wrote, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." And the greatest power isn't dominance or control, it's restraint, it's discipline. It's the ability to stay aligned when everything around you is pulling at your edges. You don't chase closure. You don't repeat stories that drain you. You don't sit in rooms where your peace has to shrink. You walk forward with less noise, more clarity. This is the final frame, where the world still roars, but your soul stays silent. Not because you're avoiding life, but because you've learned how to meet it with awareness, with steadiness, with the kind of inner strength that can't be faked and doesn't need to be announced. You're not triggered, you're trained, you're not reactive, you're responsible for your energy, your choices, your presence. And the world notices. Not because you're louder, but because you carry something rare, a stillness that no insult can shatter, a calm that doesn't rely on comfort, a clarity that came not from escaping chaos, but from walking straight through it and coming out unshaken.